Why robots will destroy the world economy and put China and India back to square one. The media tell us a new industrial revolution is on its way. Because of breakthrough technologies, robots have been getting way more advanced and much cheaper to build for the past few years. During the next few years, all kinds of new robots will be entering the markets for both consumers and businesses. Robots that can cook, drive your car, clean your house, guard your office, buy your groceries, etc. Now at first, that might look like a blessing. Imagine all the free time we will have and we can spend with our families or to relax and travel. Great stuff. But it's a bit more complicated, because robots will of course make all kinds of jobs redundant. Well, that's just the bottom of the market, I hear you think. Only the worst of the worst kind of jobs will disappear, and it will only be temporarily. Because the large-scale introduction of robots in society will create all kinds of new jobs that we never thought of before, just like when they invented the computer. Well, yes and no. It's a bit different this time. Computers are basically just very advanced calculators with a keyboard and a screen. We have been using them to, calculate. And as time progressed, these calculations became more and more advanced. We let computers calculate coordinates on a map so that we can navigate while driving. We let computers calculate colors and positions of pixels so that the result is a digital photo. But for all of these years, in most cases, this calculator, being a computer, still was a box with a keyboard and a screen. And it needed a man or a woman sitting on a chair to operate it. But as technology became more advanced, we started to connect computers to mechanical tools, wheels, feet, hands, thus creating robots who can calculate the terrain, who calculate their position and their own steps while walking, without any help from a human being. Robots now can assess traffic situations. They can detect human beings when it's totally dark. Robots can now approach human beings and ask them questions. And robots can respond based upon the answers people give them. So robots can now even build new robots like themselves. So yes, probably a whole new batch of jobs will arise because of robots. Jobs we indeed had never thought of before. But the point with the new generation of robots is they will be so advanced, they can also replace the new jobs that they created themselves. Yes, robots can even create jobs for other robots. Within a few years, robots can and will do significant parts of the work of building inspectors, prison guards, teachers, accountants, police officers, etc. In the end, a robot can almost do any kind of work that is being done right now by human beings. The only question is, do we prefer a robot or do we prefer a human being to perform a certain task? Our choices will depend on the quality of the work done by either a man or a robot, and of course the cost of the work. But even if a robot were to deliver less quality than a human being, we perhaps will choose for a robot anyway if that is much cheaper and less of a hassle. Because a robot doesn't complain, it doesn't get ill, it doesn't have a union, and it will never get tired. So even if the robot is more expensive, it might be worth to choose for a robot anyway. But unfortunately for mankind, robots will get cheaper and better, and even better, to a point where there is absolutely no use in hiring a human being to do most of the jobs that are done by human beings right now. Now, if you're still an optimist, you will think it's more of a luxury problem. We just need to find new ways to keep all these jobless people occupied, for otherwise they will get bored and frustrated. But there is of course a bigger issue at hand. Who will pay all these jobless people, and for what and why will they be paid? If they no longer produce products or services, who would be interested in paying them money? No company is interested in that. Companies are here to make a profit, not to take care of the jobless. The government, perhaps? But how would the government get the money in the first place that they need to pay the jobless? With so many people out of a job, future governments will have less and less tax revenues. And at the same time, there will be a need for more money to take care of the jobless. A grim future of the world economy shows a handful of owners calling the shots. These owners own groups or armies of robots, if you will. So how did we get there? Well, back in the day, long before the Industrial Revolution, in medieval days, you had the power, you were in control when you owned the people and the land. Because the people would work on the land, and then the land would give us the food we all need to survive. But basically, at that time, all countries in the world were poor, because productivity per capita was very low. A human being was not an efficient or profitable production unit, and most people could hardly be productive enough to take care of themselves, especially during winter time, and especially when they were getting older. Older people could only survive if they had many children, so that all these children could donate their tiny surplus of production capacity to take care of the older people, resulting in a huge population growth in the poorest of nations. Exactly the nations that would have a huge disadvantage from a growing population, because more people meant more mouths to feed. People were not an asset but an expense. Now, from a historical point of view, stuff is a bit complicated because different parts of the world experienced different kinds of developments in the same eras. So this extreme poverty has been the situation for many parts of Africa well into the 20th century, with, as a result, millions and millions of people without food, starving to death. But in the Western world in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution took place, and because of that, land slowly became less of an issue, and people became more important. As of the Industrial Revolution, you were in control if you owned the people and the factories, because the people operated the machines that could make the cars, the building materials, the furniture, etc. we all needed to shape our new way of life. All of a sudden, people became much more efficient and profitable production units, because their production capacity was enhanced by the machines they operated. Having a large population suddenly became a huge advantage for industrialized nations. This is how the USA, Japan, and Europe have become the largest economies in the world. And this is why China is on its way to be the largest economy in the world right now, because it has a reservoir of 1.4 billion profitable production units. And countries like India, Indonesia, and Brazil are following the same path, connecting a high level of industrialization with a huge population, and thus creating one huge profitable production engine. Well, back to the Western world. In the West, as of the 80s of the 20th century, there was the dawn of a new economic era, the Information Revolution. Land and factories were less of an issue. You were in control if you owned the ICT infrastructure and the information that was stored on it. and people became even more efficient and profitable production units. And companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, and Facebook are ruling the world today because of that. But this new era will only be very short-lived, because a new revolution will commence right now as we speak, only 30 years after the previous one, and it's called the Robolution. Land, factories, and even people are becoming less of an issue. You will be in control if you own robots that are equipped with information so that they can do anything you want them to do. Acquiring food, manufacturing all items you need, protecting your residence, providing entertainment, making repairs, attacking your enemies, educating your children, etc. A situation like that would fully destroy the economy as we have known it in the West for centuries. For the vast majority of the population of Western countries, there has been a certainty for many, many years that in the end, governments and companies would need people to do work. And that certainty included the fact that people would be paid for doing their job and thus creating the possibility to take care of themselves and their families. But who needs money? Who needs a job? Who would even need society if close to all your needs are served by robots? Families could isolate themselves from society by retreating in secluded compounds, perhaps together with small communities of like-minded. They could live for many years being independent, only needing very little contact with and support from the government or companies, if governments and companies will still exist by then. And the other way around, there would be very little need for people who own their own robots to contribute in any way to society. In terms of the economy, a human being would degrade from a profitable production unit to a useless expense. Robots can do almost everything we can, but much better, faster and cheaper. And therefore people wouldn't need other people anymore, besides their families and close friends. Large-scale introduction of smart robots might just open up a Pandora's box that can destroy the entire world economy, bringing all of us back to medieval autarchism. Every man and family to themselves. Those who have the best robots will be dominant and survive. Now there is a final twist. As I mentioned before, right now, in the first half of the 21st century, countries with large populations like China, India, Brazil and Indonesia are upcoming. Their economies are rapidly growing because their large populations are an advantage right now. And if the traditional system of labor-based economy is to remain, these countries would rule the world by the year 2050. And although that is still possible, countries like China, India, Indonesia and Brazil and probably the USA will be hit the hardest by the robot revolution because of their large populations becoming huge reservoirs of obsolete and non-profitable production units.